versus you're oblivious to it. Can you clearly state what my rationale or argument is?
I think I did. Were you not listening earlier?
Yeah, that's why I responded. You're clueless.
Right. So
it did not accurately represent my position.
Okay, perfect.
Not,
so
not even in the least.
You can correct me on it.
Okay. No. Well, did you accurately represent my position?
Well, that's up to you, and you're saying no.
You see,
so
again, you're dodging.
No,
This is
right?
what all you atheists
in your
do.
own position.
You dodge, you deflect, and then you're verbally disruptive. That's called the 3D strategy, which you're doing right now. Right now, you're doing the first two portions. Dodge, and you're interrupting me again. Yeah, I wasn't finished speaking. So again, what you're doing now is you're being disruptive.
Sorry, just 1 second. I got a phone call, but I seriously will be right back. 1 second.
Yeah. Cory's clueless. He's one of the lesser intelligent atheists among most of them on TikTok.
That hurts. But all right, I'm back. Go ahead.
No, it's a totally sincere evaluation on my part. Okay,
so
are you aware, and I'll demonstrate to the audience how clueless you are. Are you aware that I am a proponent of the transcendental argument for Christian theism?
I think you are, right? I think that would be correct.
Are you aware of that?
Well, I was aware of something earlier you said was wrong, so I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, okay, so how many times are you going to dodge and deflect when I'm speaking to you like a normal person? You're responding to me literally the way teenagers do at the cafeteria table. I asked you a direct question, and you didn't give me a direct answer. Okay, which is a purposeful strategy of deflection.
It was, though. I disagree with your assessment.
Of course you do, because you're shameless, just like most atheists. Now, I asked you a question. Are you aware that I advocate and argue for the transcendental argument for Christian theism?
Is yes the only word that means yes?
Yeah. Notice again, stalling, dodging, and delaying. Okay, they can't have a straightforward answer. You're a typical atheist.
I'm going to try to do yes.
Did I just ask you a direct question?
Obviously, you have a problem. So I'm going to say yes. I'm aware. Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Can you recapitulate succinctly my transcendental argument for Christian theism? Since you said earlier that you understand what I advocate for.
Well, okay. Sure. So tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that when you ask an atheist questions, you're sort of trying to illustrate where it falls apart, right? Is that
You're not
correct?
Recapitulating my positive argument.
Okay, and I think
I asked you to recapitulate the positive argument that I make on a daily basis.
Right, and then I think what you do from there is that you try to say that if you can ground logic in God, like God is the true grounding of things like transcendental things like logic, right? And the way we know that is through divine revelation. I think that's what you say. Is that wrong?
That's partially correct.
Okay.
So I point out that our entire experience with the world is revelational of God, that the world exemplifies and indicates ultimate design and intentionality with the impossibility of its rational denial. Okay?
Okay.
Now, so atheists already reject categorically that the world is indicative and revelatory of God. Once they reject that, they are making an implicit counterclaim. Now, are you aware that the moment you reject that the world is emblematic and indicative of ultimate design and intentionality by God's purpose, that if you so much as don't accept it, you say, "Nuh-uh, bro," you're making an implicit counterclaim?
Yes, let's say yes.
Okay, then it is incumbent upon you, once you reject the positive representation that God reveals himself in creation, in that the creation exemplifies ultimate design and intentionality at any scale, from a subatomic to a cosmological scale. And there's only two options. Either the world exemplifies ultimate design and intentionality, or it does not. There's not a third option. Are we aware of that?
Yeah, I think that's a true dichotomy.
So
sure, I'll
if
go to
you
that.
do not accept it, what atheists do is they rarely defend their implicit counterclaim but they play the nuh-uh bro game. It's called the presumption of atheism, and that's a technical term. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay, can you tell me what that is? The presumption of atheism in philosophy?
Well, like, so if you're presuming, I mean, I could be wrong because I'm not studied in philosophy, but if you're presuming that there is no God, you're sort of also presuming that everything we see kind of got here through a non-God method, right?
The presumption of atheism is a technical term in philosophy, promulgated by the late Anthony Flew. The presumption of atheism, which is a part of what is called atheological apologetics, which is also a scholarly paper, that in the absence of being persuaded that anything indicates God, that the atheist is justified in asserting that there is no God. That's called the presumption of atheism, and is integral to 99% of most atheists' position. Would that characterize your position?
Not 100%.
Okay.
Maybe like 80%.
Okay.
But 80% characterize it.
So the world around us either exemplifies ultimate design and intentionality or not. The world can be construed as being the product of ultimate design and intentionality. Do you deny that statement?
No. Can I ask another question?
I'm not done yet.
It's really quick. It's a quick one.
Okay. Once
the
the world
could
can be
exemplify.
construed,
What if
can
the
I
world?
finish, please? And then I'll answer all
really
your
quick.
questions.
All right.
Once the world can be
I forgot,
construed as the product of ultimate design and intentionality, when it is accompanied by the impossibility of the contrary, then what is construed or indicative therefore becomes the truth. Okay? Now, you do not accept the presentation of God's revelation that the world is revelatory of God, and therefore you're staking out the claim that it is rationally deniable. So you're going to have to give me a rational defense of the world without reference to God. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. Can't wait to hear this. Go ahead.
No, but well, first of all, I want to say that when you say, all right, so you said either the world around us exemplifies design and creation. I don't know if those are the exact words.
Ultimate intentionality.
And ultimate intentionality. Now, it's possible that the world does not exemplify that, and God still exists, because it's possible for God to exist without the world around us exemplifying intentionality.
I'm waiting for you to support your counterclaim. Your position is...
I just want to point that out. Like, you don't even need to rest your argument.
I agree with that. So your position is that the world does not exemplify design, and by virtue of you not accepting that, okay, you're going to be operating in principle that God does not exist.
Yeah.
Good. Now, please explain to me how God does not exist, because I've already made a positive case for God's existence.
Have you heard my prisoner thought experiment where you're
I don't need a lengthy analogy story. Just get, cut to the chase. Explain to me clearly and succinctly how you determine God does not exist.
Well, there just doesn't appear to be any evidence. I don't think
that's
the world around us exemplifies.
Do you realize you've just committed an appeal to ignorance fallacy?
Okay, but
do you know what an appeal to ignorance
fallacy doesn't also mean it's true, right?
Do you know what an appeal to ignorance fallacy is?
I think I do.
Good. Tell me what it is.
Well, let me get a dictionary definition. You want to look
No. I want you right now, without looking it up. You told me you didn't commit that fallacy. Can you tell me what the fallacy is that you said you didn't commit?
Yeah, I mean, I think appeal to ignorance is if you're making a positive claim that we're making based on the fact that we don't know something. Like theists will often do that with.
You're not addressing what I just asked you. You're just rambling, all right? And I'm not trying to be insulted here. I want you to succinctly explain to me what is an appeal to ignorance fallacy. It's very easy to state in one sentence.
Why do I have to help you so much to present your own argument?
Okay. Now what you're doing now is you're dodging and deflecting. I asked you a legitimate question.
I am, because
I said that you were committing. Now you're going
listen.
into disruptive mode. Okay. Dodge, deflect, disrupt. I know you atheists like the back of my hand. I've been doing this for 15 years. I know what you people are like. Now, I said to you, you said that you don't have a reason to believe in God, therefore no God. I said you have just committed an appeal to ignorance fallacy, and you said, no, I haven't. Did you say that?
Right, yes.
Okay, can you tell me in one sentence what an appeal to ignorance fallacy is?
Okay, well, so I did my best. If you say I'm wrong, then that's where we're at.
I didn't hear any clear.
You can't get blood out of a rock, right?
Can you
if I don't know the correct
answer,
answer,
give me again
more
verbal
just laugh at me for not knowing that?
More verbal disruption. This is the game that you people play, and you humiliate yourself when you do this. Now, I asked you a clear, reasonable question. Can you tell me in one sentence what an appeal to ignorance fallacy is? You keep on dodging and delaying answering the question.
I gave my answer, and if you say it's wrong, that's where we're at, right?
We're not. You get that was no representation of it.
Well, then I was just wrong. Can't I just be wrong?
Right. So an appeal to ignorance fallacy is that a proposition is deemed to be true because it hasn't been falsified.
Okay, I think I said that. What I said was a synonym for that.
Yeah.
You seem to have a problem.
Actually, I'm recording
will ask you a yes or no.
Review.
Like you'll ask them a yes or no question, and then they'll answer yes, but they won't use the word yes. And you'll be like, you didn't answer my question.
Okay, so the bottom line is, do you now realize that you've committed an appeal to ignorance fallacy?
No.
Okay. Did you assert that a proposition is true, God does not exist, because it hasn't been falsified?
I did. That's not exactly what I did.
Did you assert that God does not exist because you don't have a reason to believe God exists?
I didn't.
I didn't hear you.
I didn't do that.
So your position is not God does not exist because you don't have a reason to believe in God. That's not your position?
That's correct.
Okay, that's what you actually said earlier. So tell me what your position, and I'm glad I'm screen recording this, because I'm going to go back and I'm going to show the TikTok world how you're either lying or you have amnesia like Joe Biden. So can you tell me succinctly how God doesn't exist?
So I would say that in the world of unknowns, we have to operate as though things are true when we can't verify one way or the other. Because in some cases,
tell me why God doesn't exist? Because so far you're not saying anything of substance.
Okay, I can act as though God doesn't exist, even if I'm technically
not answering the question. You're dodging.
Right?
You're literally dodging the question. It's called filibustering. Can you please tell me why there's no God?
There's no reason to believe in God.
Okay,
that's not really
you
why there
just
is no
committed.
God.
Okay, so God does not
exist. There might be a God. There might be a God.
Hold on a second. Are you saying that God does not exist because you don't have a reason to believe in God?
Well, I'm not actually saying God does not exist.
Oh, so you're now backing away from your atheism?
I am
now claiming neutrality.
I don't believe in God. That's not a choice.
Are you claiming neutrality?
No.
Okay. So you're a God denier, correct?
But with asterisks, yes.
No, don't give me this teenage bullshit. Okay. Either you affirm God.
If I say I'm denying God, does that mean I'm 100% denying God?
Look,
can I 99%
deny bullshit
God?
Do you have no shame on TikTok that you're making a fool of yourself right now just by filibustering? You're just going yada yada yada. Can you please tell me why God does not exist?
God 99% does not exist because he has equivalent evidence to millions of other things that we say do not exist. So
what is you're going to have to put that in an adult way. That was very ambiguous. God does not exist because
Because it doesn't look like he exists. The whole universe,
what does that
everything
even
that
mean? It looks like he doesn't exist.
Everything
Okay, so
you say
you're
God
saying
did
is
seems to have happened
God
without
does not
God.
exist because you accept that the world represents naturalism.
Yeah, I see the footprints of a godless universe everywhere.
What is the argument that the world in its entirety is naturalistic? What's the argument for that?
Every single thing we look at around us is the footprints of a mechanistic universe that follows only the laws of physics.
Yeah.
Only the laws of physics, nothing else.
Yeah, okay, so here's the problem. You're assuming that all of the world as it presents itself to you, without justification, you're saying it is absolute within itself and does not derive from God. You haven't given me a justification for that.
No, I mean, it looks that way.
Okay, what does that even mean, it looks that way? How do you look at the world and say, it looks like it exists independently from God? How does it look that way?
How do you say it looks like it has intentionality? I don't think it does.
Yeah,
I disagree with that.
You're dodging the question. And this is what every atheist does, and you're doing it right now. Explain to me, looking at the world around you, the sun, the moon, the clouds, the stars, the bunny rabbits, how does it look? How do you conclude ultimately all things exist with independence from God? When you look at the blue sky and the clouds, can you please explain to me how, looking at that, how you can conclude necessarily that the blue sky, the clouds, and the green grass exist with independence from God? Explain that.
Because they're all explained by very simple mechanistic rules, and that the mechanistic simple rules
So
don't scream mind to me.
Okay, so is the alternative explanation true?
Yeah, that's what I believe. Yeah.
Okay, and how did you determine that that's true? Our physics,
like intuition.
Okay, so is the most basic level of physics, is this absolute, unconditionally non-derivative, independent, and eternal?
It would seem so to me. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a non-informative response. How did you determine that at a bottom substrate, let's say at quantum mechanics, is absolute and eternal and non-derivative?
Because that's our best model. So, like, all our models could be wrong.
Why are you lying?
Like, there's always uncertainty.
Yeah, that's not your best model. Science is not advocating for the eternality of the sub-quantum world.
No, Blitz does.
You said that's our best model. Nobody is advocating in scientific journals that because they...
Blitz is.
Okay, listen, do you understand that in quantum mechanics, these are just theories and models that we conjecture based upon doing measurements. How does measuring anything indicate that something is eternal?
Well, so we figured out that energy and matter are independently conserved, so that it implies that they've always existed.
I'm glad you're going this way. Are you advocating for the first law of thermodynamics to say that matter and energy are eternal, therefore no God?
That's not the whole thing, but that's part of it, sure.
Is that your position?
That doesn't give you my whole position. That's a small part of my position.
Is matter and energy eternal based upon what?
There's no mechanism for them to not be eternal.
Yeah, that's an appeal to ignorance fallacy.
Well, yeah, but like...
Do you realize you just committed an appeal to
uncertainty.
ignorance fallacy again?
Do you accept that there's uncertainty?
Yeah,
do you accept that there's uncertainty?
Every time I challenge you and I give you a rebuttal, you don't give me a counter rebuttal. You continue to rabbit trail, which is what atheists do. Okay?
Well, I don't think you want a rebuttal.
Did you not realize
I want
that
you
see, you're so shameless that you won't even take correction when you've been caught with your hand in the cookie jar. You just committed an appeal to ignorance fallacy again for the second time. An appeal to ignorance fallacy is a model or an idea is true or a proposition because it hasn't been falsified. You just did that for the second time. Do you realize you did that?
Well, I didn't say. I said it was probably true. I mean, it's different.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
uncertainty.
See, talking
You
with
know
you
what I
is
mean?
like talking to a teenage child. Okay, you will not be honest about how you have been caught in mistakes. Now, how did you determine that anything is eternal? Because science deals with provisional conclusions. Are all conclusions in science provisional?
That one certainly is. I think probably.
No, are all
sure.
conclusions in science provisional?
Yes, but crucially to different
so
degrees.
you're using a provisional conclusion that is not necessarily true, and it could be wrong. So David Tong, an internationally known British physicist, after giving a lecture on physics and the quantum realm and quantum fields, said that's the current model of physicality. He wasn't speaking metaphysically, mind you. And he said, but we could be wrong about this if we're looking at it from the wrong perspective. So what you're doing is you're doing what the ancient Greeks used to do, just say everything is just atoms, okay? You haven't shown me that you know that a substrate of the physical world is eternal. How did you figure out that it's eternal?
Well, it's a true dichotomy that it's either eternal or it's not eternal. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, so we can either say, there's only three things we can say. We can say it's probably this one, it's probably that one, or we could just be like 50-50. We could say we have no idea which one it is.
Have you determined that the substrate of the physical naturalistic world, have you determined that it is true that the substrate of the physical world is absolute and eternal?
Right, so the way we do that is that we...
What do you mean we? Who's
we? Science like as thinkers.
Science is not in the business of determining that anything is eternal. Okay, when science is just simply proposing models,
and a model might have an eternal universe.
Are models a determination that it's necessarily true?
No, but nothing is.
Okay, good. So then you don't. So you don't have a logically necessary proposition to falsify God, then, do you?
Oh, I totally agree with that. Completely agree with that.
Okay, so
I don't have a logically necessary.
Have you now admitted that
to deny God?
Okay, so your atheism is bankrupt?
Disproving God is impossible. We agree on that.
So you're adopting an irrational platform?
I disagree with that.
Is atheism rational?
I think mine is.
Good. Can you tell me why God doesn't exist if it's rational?
Because either God exists or God does not exist. That is a true dichotomy. So we can either say God exists or we say God does not exist. The God exists requires more assumptions than God does not exist.
Yeah, you're trying Occam's razor here. Do you realize that that's a colossal mistake on your part?
I do not.
Okay, Occam's razor is a heuristic principle. It's preferential only, and it is not logically determinative.
It's not determinative, correct.
No,
that's why.
So guess what? That was a major fail that you just brought up. I'm asking you to give me a logical and necessary determination that God does not exist. Can you do that?
So there's a lot of unfalsifiable.
Can you answer my question instead of fucking dodging?
You're re-asking the same one I answered.
Every time I ask you a question, you meander to semi-related rabbit trails. Do you realize you do that?
I disagree with that.
Can you please tell me why God logically and necessarily does not exist?
No, I cannot.
Okay, so your atheism is bankrupt then.
Right?
Is your atheism without rational necessity?
It is not without rational. Correct. You're correct in that.
Okay, so your atheism is irrational then.
No, that is not.
What is the rational basis?
That's not a true dichotomy.
What is the rational? You know what? I have debated teenagers, and I'm not trying to be mean here or obnoxious, but I've had teenagers who have fared better than you are right now. You are failing miserably.
Who do you think is expressing more kindness right now?
No, I'm being assertive, just like Christ was assertive with the Pharisees when they opposed the truth of God. You are opposing the truth of God, and I'm being assertive like Jesus did. Now, can you give me a rational defense that God does not exist?
There's more assumptions to say God does exist than does not.
You're repeating what I just refuted.
My best guess is that God does not exist. That's the best guess.
So is that guess based upon, is it a rationally necessary conclusion? Excuse me.
It's not necessary, but it's preferred due to Occam.
So what? Then is there an objective grounding to your God denialism, or is your God denialism relativistic and arbitrary?
There's a little background noise. If you had a rational and necessary argument
Answer the
for
question.
God,
Do you realize your pattern of behavior? You dodge my questions. Is your God denialism rooted in a rational, objective grounding, or is it in a dichotomy, arbitrary and relativistic? Which is it?
I'd say probably more arbitrary and relativistic.
No, not probably. Either it's arbitrary or not arbitrary.
Well, I don't think arbitrary is fair.
You know what? You are a little deceitful little man, okay? Because you can smile all you want. No, I'm calling you out for what you're doing.
Could be wrong,
you
right?
are a deceitful, evasive person. You come up with all these little trick answers here. Now, is your God denialism arbitrary?
No.
Good. What is the logical and logically necessary case that God does not exist?
That's not a true dichotomy. It's not either irrational or
if you
necessary.
don't have a rationally objective basis to assert God doesn't exist, then it's arbitrary. Either there's a rational objective basis for claiming God does not exist.
But you can't say
that
it's necessary.
That is a true dichotomy. Is it not what I just said?
Right.
Either you have a rationally objective case for God's non-existence or not. If it's not, it's going to reduce to arbitrariness or relativism. Do you know what relativism is?
Yes, like I'm a moral relativist and an appraiser relativist, right?
Is your God denialism rooted in arbitrariness or relativism, or is your God denialism rooted in a rationally objective rationale?
I don't know if it's objective. I think everything's subjective.
So it's relativistic?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, guess what? Relativistic pronouncements distill down into global skepticism. Are you aware of that?
Well, I am globally skeptical.
Okay, I don't think you understand what I just said. Global skepticism is a term in philosophy which means we can know nothing ultimately or fundamentally. That's what
I agree with that.
We're not talking about somebody being a skeptic about God. We're talking global skepticism in philosophy means that ultimately we can know nothing.
Ultimately we can know nothing. I agree with that.
Okay, good. Then you don't have rational grounds to assert that God doesn't exist.
Right. Well, it's a true dichotomy. So I either pick one side or I say exactly
I don't know if you're just obtuse or you're just being evasive when I have just delivered what is called a coup de grace. Did you just admit you're asserting God does not exist because of I don't know?
Well, we both don't know,
okay.
Right?
Are you asserting? Well, you're what you're now doing.
That's not why.
Okay, have you ever heard of the tu quo que fallacy?
I don't think so.
Okay, the tu quo que fallacy stands for you too. You are guilty of the very thing I'm guilty of. That's the tu quo que fallacy. So when you do that, you are committing. Okay, I'm trying to explain something to you that you don't understand. Okay?
I'm just pointing it out incidentally. It's not
when you say I can know nothing too, is that a knowledge statement?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, do you know what a performative contradiction is?
Wait, hold on. Somebody says start Googling. Am I Googling with this hand?
A performative contradiction is a proposition or an assertion that is self-referential. I'm trying to explain something to you. Okay? You just committed a performative contradiction when you said you can't know either. Okay, so if I'm in the same boat as you, are you in the boat that you can fundamentally know nothing?
Right, yes.
Good, then therefore, to assert that I don't know anything either is a performative contradiction, because that's a knowledge statement. You have just committed.
Well, how's it
a perform. Okay, I'll explain it to you really quickly, since you're such a really smart atheist. A performative contradiction is a proposition or statement that is self-referential, self-undermining, and self-contradictory, either by its own internal content or the background information that would be required to rationally and logically ground the proposition. So when you say, I'm in the same boat as you, well, the boat you're talking about is you can fundamentally know nothing. But when you say, I can't know something, that's a knowledge statement, correct?
Right, yeah, so I could be wrong even about that.
Have correct. You just committed a performative contradiction?
It's not a contradiction.
Okay, do I have to go over it again with you? Okay, a performative
there can be no certainty,
carefully.
even about me saying...
This is what you guys do. When you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, you just go into contrarianism. A performative contradiction... I'm going to have to explain with you. Do you understand what a performative contradiction is?
I agreed with you, and then you said I'm contradicting things.
Do you know what a performative contradiction is?
No.
Did I just explain it to you?
I don't.
Did I just explain it to you?
No.
Yes, I did. Now you're lying. You guys.
I didn't understand.
You guys are effing shameless liars, and you're smug about it. You're a shameless, a smuggy liar. I just explained to you. Here, I'll explain it to you again. A performative contradiction is a proposition or a statement that is self-referential.
It's amazing that I can do that by mistake. I'm not trying to be.
Can you control your mouth and shut your yap for 1 second while I explain something that I already explained to you?
Well, hold on. I want to highlight the guy that says I'm Googling.
Okay, now, are you going to pay attention or not? Because I already explained to you what a performative contradiction is, and you have amnesia for it. Are you paying attention to me, or are you searching the...
Yeah, I didn't... sorry, Darth, you're cutting out a little bit. But,
yeah, bullshit. You're a liar. I can see that you're reading stuff on the internet.
You cut out a little bit, sorry.
Yeah, you're full of shit. My signal is...
It's giving the one bar thing?
4 bars. I have 4 bars, my friend. Okay?
No, look. I'm recording it. I can show you that it cut out.
You know what? This video is going to go up to TikTok and to YouTube.
Hey, it just went away. You're good now. You're good. It just went away. You're good.
Yeah, you're full of shit.
You're good now.
Yeah,
it's working well.
You're full of shit. Yeah, you're not a good liar. Okay? You're just embarrassing yourself. Now, do you understand? I'll repeat what a performative contradiction is. A performative contradiction is a statement or a proposition that is in some way self-referential, wherein it undermines or contradicts itself, or the background information required to make the assertion contradicts or undermines.
I think I get it. I get it.
Okay, you get it now. Now,
I get what you're saying.
You said
now.
that I don't know anything either. Was that a performative contradiction?
I guess it sounds like it, right? But I think that's true too.
It is a performative contradiction. It doesn't sound like it. Why are you so smarmy and evasive? Are you like this in your daily life? I try to be. Did you commit a performative contradiction when you said, I can't know anything either?
I mean, it sounds that way, but I don't think it's wrong.
Well, did you say that?
Do you think that defeats global skepticism?
Dude,
are you trying to defeat global skepticism?
You're coming across more evasive than stupid teenagers. Do you realize how you're coming across? You're being entirely evasive with me. I'm asking you direct, reasonable questions. Now, did you commit a performative contradiction when you said, I don't know anything, too?
I'm going to say no. The more you ask it, the more I'm leaning towards no.
So obviously I'm dealing with something with low IQ, low information. I just explained to you twice what a performative contradiction is.
Couldn't I just be wrong?
You can't know anything. Okay, so you're just going to bicker like a fucking little teenager. This is how embarrassing you are. Now, if you can't know anything, can you make a rational knowledge statement that I, too, don't know anything? Is that a knowledge statement?
Yes.
Okay, well, then if it's knowledge statement, you can't know it.
Right, I don't know it. That's an assumption.
Good,
I assume
then it's arbitrary.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, that's why I'm a global skeptic.
So when you said, I can't know anything too, was that arbitrary?
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess, to some degree,
you know what the kiss of death is in
not totally, it's not random.
Do you know what the kiss of death is in arbitrariness is?
What?
Excuse me, I don't know if I said that correctly. Do you know what the kiss of death is in debate?
What?
It is inconsistency, contradicting oneself, and arbitrariness.
Okay.
Do you agree with that?
In competitive debate,
no,
it is,
sir.
yeah,
any type of rational
kind of debate.
Sir,
like I'm not debating to win.
Yeah, dude. You know what? You're just a miserable failure here. Okay. You just because you have the gift of the gab, you think that if sounds are coming out of your vocal cords, you're making sense.
Thank you that you think I have the gift of gab.
Now,
I appreciate that.
In any type of debate, is the kiss of death in a debate when somebody is engaging in inconsistency, self-contradiction, and arbitrariness? Is that the kiss of death in any rational dispute?
In like competitive debate, yeah.
No.
I think you're kind of debating.
Why do you keep on doing this bullshit about qualifying? In any rational dispute, being arbitrary is the kiss of death. Do you understand? It has nothing to do with competitive debate. Is the kiss of death irrational?
You've been asking me a lot of questions. Can I answer your question?
You know what? You're almost borderline hopeless here because you're ignoring everything I'm saying and you're just going yada 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 and you're filibustering here. Is your denial of God arbitrary?
No.
Good. What is your rational defense that God does not exist?
I try to minimize assumptions.
Can you? Okay.
Right?
Okay. Can you stop giving me evasive responses? You are clearly... Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. Let's see how honest you are for the audience. Have you been not, a number of times, been clearly and purposely giving me evasive responses to the question that I'm putting to you?
Not on purpose.
Yeah, no, on purpose. You're a liar. You're an absolute bald.
I'm trying my best, Darth. I swear.
You're not. You're not trying your best. You're lying again, Pinocchio, because it's clear you're purposely being evasive to my question. Now, how?
You gotta give me the benefit of the doubt, man.
Do you have a rational defense whereby you know?
Are you good faith?
Okay, do you have a rational defense that God does not exist?
Yes.
What is it?
It's that it has fewer assumptions.
I've already covered that. I've already rebutted that. You're invoking Occam's razor. Okay, are you invoking Occam's razor?
Yes.
Good. Is Occam's razor logically determinative?
No.
Okay, so guess what?
It's probabilistic.
Guess what? You lose. Occam's razor is not logically determinative. I'm looking for you to give me a logically rational, determinative statement how God doesn't exist.
It doesn't need to be deterministic.
I'm still waiting for you to give me a rational defense that God does not exist. Would you please do that right now?
It requires fewer assumptions.
Okay. Why do you keep on repeating the same thing? That's not a logically necessary statement.
Because you haven't rebutted it. You haven't rebutted it.
I just did. I mean, You know what? I'm about to leave really soon because now you are blatantly lying. You are blatantly, dude. Are you AI where you're just like a smarmy defense lawyer where you're just lying right now? I did offer you rebuttal. I said to you that Occam's razor is a heuristic device, okay, in investigation, whereupon
the best we have.
Can I fucking finish without you constantly interrupting me? Can you do that? Do you have self-control? Now, for the third time I've explained to you, Occam's razor is simply preferential. It is not logically determinative. Good. I don't want you to give me your preferences. I want you to explain to me why logically and rationally God does not exist. Can you please do that?
I don't need to.
Okay, so you're asserting God, but you don't have a rational defense of God's non-existence?
Well, it's unfalsifiable, but other things are unfalsifiable too.
Dude, listen to me. Do you understand that in a world without an identifiable, defensible absolute, such as the self-revealing God, falsifiability becomes meaningless? In a world where you can fundamentally know nothing, then there is no falsifiability for anything. Can you falsify something in a world where you can fundamentally know nothing?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe to some degree, yeah, you can't really falsify anything.
No, it's not to some degree. I love these stupid qualifications. If you can ultimately know nothing, then affirmation and falsification are impossible.
Everything's black and white with you.
Hold on one second.
Okay. I live in a world of grays. Probabilities.
No, you see, you're a master at bullshitting and smugness. Do you have a rational defense that God does not exist?
Yes.
Give it to me.
You're minimizing assumptions. It's the best we can do on anything.
Why? Like you're mentally defective. Why do you keep on going back to something that I've rebutted? I've already explained to you that statement is just a statement. Okay, that's a statement of preference, not of a logical, necessary conclusion.
Yeah, but you can't do logical necessary conclusions on an unfalsifiable thing. Like if I said there's an undetectable dragon in here.
You're not understanding. Okay, so you're going to be educated today. The falsification criterion is a historical permutation of logical positivism. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay. So logical positivism had its reign, and I'll try to be as quick as possible, in the mid part of the 20th centuries. It was annihilated in philosophy, and not even atheist philosophers till this day will advocate for logical positivism. Logical positivism is that a proposition or a statement, in order to be accepted as true or meaningful, must be confirmable by your sense perception. Okay? So logical positivism didn't pass its own test. It's a self-refuting position. Okay? The falsification principle that you are invoking, okay, on a grand scale, that all propositions must be in principle falsifiable, right? Otherwise, they're not to be regarded as either meaningful or true. The falsification principle itself is self-refuting, okay? So let me ask you this question. Your position is, in order for something to be true or meaningful, it must be in principle falsifiable?
Let me think about that. In order for something to be true,
how is the falsification criterion that you're advancing, how is that falsifiable?
Okay. So I would say that something being unfalsifiable is not an argument
you're
that it's true.
You're not answering the question. You're just going off onto a
It's a rebuttal. That's my rebuttal.
Listen carefully. I actually am a bit more educated on this than you are. How is the falsification criterion that you're laying out, how is that fundamentally falsifiable?
I don't think it is.
Good. Then you're advancing it as a self-contradiction.
Uh-huh.
Do you realize that? In the same way that logical positivism is self-refuting, and the falsification criterion as used, let me finish, because I'm educated on this. You're using the falsification criterion universally, okay? Now, so because you say God isn't falsifiable, it doesn't establish God's non-existence. But the falsification criterion is self-refuting.
I agree.
Do you understand that the falsification criterion is self-refuting?
No, I agree, right? But
okay,
I don't.
So I don't want to hear about
God's being not falsifiable doesn't mean it's not true.
Okay.
But you have to also contend with the other unfalsifiable things.
Dude, you're
right?
worse than teenagers that I talk to. I'm waiting for you to tell me why God doesn't exist.
Because you're making extra assumptions for no reason.
Okay, this is the 5th time you've invoked Occam's razor. Is Occam's razor preferential and therefore relativistic? Or is Occam's razor is logical? Is Occam's razor logically determinative?
Doesn't need to be.
Okay, I didn't say it needed to be. I said, is it?
It isn't.
Good.
And that's not a problem.
Therefore, when you invoke Occam's razor as a rationale, it's not logically determinative that God doesn't exist.
Do you think that it's that
Can you
if you
stop
have
ignoring what I just said to you?
Can I ask a question? No, I didn't. I answered it.
And if you answer what I just said to you,
right.
If Occam's razor, when applied, is not logically determinative, then you haven't given me a rational grounding that God does not exist. Occam's razor.
Oh, I disagree.
Razor is preferential. It is not logically determinative. Therefore, when you invoke Occam's razor, I'm trying to finish because you don't understand this because you're not educated. When you invoke Occam's razor for the 5th time that I have refuted systematically, that it is not logically determinative. It is simply preferential.
No, you're making a false dichotomy. You're saying it either needs to be logically determinative or it's not rational. That's what you're saying, but that's not true.
You're just a pathological deceiver at this point. You're just a walking, talking bullshitter. Okay, do you understand Occam's razor does not get you... Okay, listen carefully. If you can ultimately know nothing, then you can't have a rational justification that God doesn't exist, correct?
Right, well... Not 100%.
No.
Right?
Okay,
not 100%.
You're confusing knowledge with certitude. Do you understand that knowledge and certitude are 2 different things?
I've never heard of certitude.
Certitude means one's confidence or level of certainty. Certainty is not the same thing as knowledge. Okay? So, for example, somebody can know something but have any number of varying degrees of certitude about it, even a minimal certainty, while at the same time they can truly know certain propositions, even if they cannot express to themselves or others that they know it. That's called tacit knowledge. So don't conflate knowledge with certitude. Now, if you cannot ultimately know anything at all, which you have stated, then how can you know that God doesn't exist?
I don't know that God doesn't exist.
Oh, okay. So then you're arbitrarily declaring God doesn't exist?
I'm saying it's less likely that God exists than does exist.
That's a category error. You cannot apply a probabilistic assessment to what is putatively the singular ground of being because there's no further background information. You can only assess probabilistic scenarios when there's background information as to what's static and non-static. So when you talk about God probably existing or not existing, you're committing a category error as much as saying, what does blue taste like? So do you understand that that's a category error?
I don't. I disagree that it's a category error.
It's a category error. Okay. When we have a worldview where God conceptually or putatively is the ground of being, there is no background information or context for God. Correct?
Yeah, sure.
Right? And so God definitionally or conceptually is a non-contingent entity whose existence is not subject to what, or the product of, what would be static and dynamic. You need background information of what's static and non-static or dynamic in order to make probabilistic declarations. So therefore, I've explained it again for the second time. You're committing a category error.
I don't think it's a category error. I think that you're conflating.
Okay.
You're
Probabilistic
conflating the probability.
Listen, okay,
No.
wow. Either you're
you're
really
wrong.
obtuse and you shouldn't be on
You don't want to know?
or you're being purposely evasive.
You want to know?
So listen carefully.
Are you afraid what I'm about to
Do
say?
probabilistic assessments require background information?
Why are you afraid?
Why?
Well,
Okay,
say
listen to me.
it.
If you're gonna be a little smarmy little dirtbag, I'm gonna leave. Now,
It's not going to be that long, I
okay,
promise.
listen carefully. In order to make a probabilistic assessment of X, must X be subject to and encompassed by background information?
I didn't make a probabilistic assessment.
Yes, you did.
Of
You said
X.
God probably doesn't exist. Okay, I'm done with you.
No, that's an assessment about my certainty. It's not an assessment about the truth of the matter.
You are impossible. You are a pathological liar. You're a pathological contrarian. When I show you time and time again how you make fallacy after fallacy after fallacy, you just ignore it like the black
disagree.
knight. Look, I'm done with you. I will
Maybe
not be
I'm
coming on here
stupid.
again. I will not be coming on
I'm
here
trying
again.
my best.
Okay, no, you're not. And even you're lying about that. Either you're
I am not.
psychologically deranged. Either you're psychologically
I
deranged.
could be.
Can I
How
finish?
could I know I'm not?
Either because I have enough experience in dealing with atheists over 15 years, and what I'm seeing you constantly do is you're dodging. Did I not explain to you? This is the proof of the pudding. Did I not explain to you that Occam's razor is simply a statement of preferentiality? It is not in any way determinative.
That's good, though. That's good. That's what I want.
It's not, because when you rely on Occam's razor, it's not determinative of whether God exists or not.
Right, I'm not trying to make it. I'm trying to figure
I
out...
asked you to give me a logically determinative rationale that God does not exist. I asked you that question. Did I not ask you that question multiple times?
Yes. No, you said a rational...
You know what? I'm done with you. You are a pathological contrarian and evasive.
Well, I guess I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you when you leave, I guess.
You're a very...
You don't want to hear it when you're on.
Listen, you're a very deceitful person. Bye.
All right. Sorry, Darth.
You know, I have many Darth Dawkins sayisms, and one of them is, where do they grow these people?